Do you have a trip planned to India, but you're wondering, is India safe for solo travelers, especially solo female travelers? I've made this video with 5 key India solo female travel tips and what I learned as a first-time traveler in India. You're gonna wanna stay to the end because I saved my favorite solo female travel tip for last. Let's go. Hey there, I'm Mia, your solo female travel guide. I have traveled the world for about 15 years now and just spent 45 days in India. Can't wait to share about that trip. If you love solo travel, learning from locals, and you're ready to start your solo travel adventure of your dreams, hit that subscribe button. I'm here to help you. Don't let any fear or negative stories keep you from going on that trip. India is incredible. It's massive, it's chaotic, it's diverse, it's beautiful, breathtaking. You're gonna have the best time there. These tips are just used to help you be as prepared as possible for the awesome adventure you're about to have. Let's get into those 5 key India solo female travel tips. My first India solo female travel tip is avoid scams. This is a big one, and this is for any traveler in India. I was told this countless times before going by locals and travelers alike that India is kind of known for scams. Don't let that scare you off from going, but do your research and be prepared. Next video is actually going to be all about this, so I'm not going to go too into detail, but I'm going to talk about the most common scam today, which is the taxi scam. Taxi scam can be a couple of different things. You're tired, you get off of the airplane, you just want to grab a cab and go to your location. So you might grab the first cab that you see. I would highly suggest not to do that. If you get into any of the black cabs, they might drive you around in circles until the meter runs really high. You have to pay a pretty large price. You would be surprised at how many people this happens to. One thing to prevent that is not getting into those cabs at all, but also to have Google Maps downloaded on your phone beforehand so you can track where you're going. The second taxi scam is where you'll get into a cab, give them your address, you know you're staying at that address, and the driver will say, "Oh, this area is really unsafe. There's protests happening right now. The streets are closed. We can't take you there. But we do have a second hotel that's a really good option." I met 3 people in my one trip, who were scammed this way. We'll offer to call the hotel for you. You'll give them the number. They'll dial a different number of someone who works for them. They'll say, "Oh, yes, I'm sorry, I forgot to tell you, but please go to our second location. It's safe there." The cab driver will then drive you to their scam hotel. You'll be charged a pretty high fee for one night stay. They might try to get you to check in at the tourist office. There's no tourist office. You don't need to check in when you arrive. Any place they stop at is connected with their scam ring. They're always getting a cut out of that. Make sure you save some emergency numbers for India. Straight out of the airport, there's a cab company called Meru or Meru, M-E-R-U. There's a yellow sign. What you'll do is you'll give them the address beforehand. They'll tell you what the price will be. I have never had a problem with this cab company, and many of the places I've stayed at recommended this right off the bat because they know it's really common for people to get scammed on their first day. In fact, I met someone who was scammed out of $500 their first night in India. India is not expensive, so do not do not pay that money. It's really important to have travel insurance, especially if you're in a country where scams are common, like India. So I have linked World Nomads and Safety Wing below. Those are 2 of my favorite travel insurance companies. Have you ever been scammed in a foreign country before? What was the scam? Let me know below. This leads me to my second India solo female travel tip, which is be firm in saying no. This can be a really hard one for people to learn. I'm gonna be totally honest. Harassment is a pretty big thing in India. Not to scare you off. Do not let this scare you off. The one thing that will really help you in your trip is at the beginning, learn how to give a firm no and expect people to stare, especially in cities where maybe they don't have a lot of foreign tourists. Even in Delhi, where they do get more people coming in, this happened quite frequently. So you have to be really confident and firm in saying no. And what's even better than doing that is just completely ignoring what is happening. Unless someone does start filming you and you don't want to be filmed, you can always walk up to them and say, no, please delete that video. I know you're filming me. And if it makes you feel uncomfortable, tell them. You don't have to be afraid that anything's going to happen. Most people are just curious. And this isn't all people, by the way. Of course not. But this will happen on occasion. So definitely be aware of it. Don't be afraid of saying no. Okay, my India solo female travel tip number 3 is to explore cities you don't know much about. This is something that made my trip so memorable, fun, and special. There were definitely cities that I didn't connect with as much, Delhi, but there were other cities that I explored. I had 10 days of free time as a solo traveler, and so I ended up going to Shimla and staying with a local family in a remote village homestay for a few days, like outside of Shimla. I spent some time in Shimla in the mountains. It's a college town. It was great. I also headed south to Kerala, which I highly recommend if you're a solo female traveler. I felt super safe. So my tip to you is don't be afraid to branch out. And if you have any questions about the cities that I went to, drop them in the comments below. I'm happy to answer them. My India travel tip number 4 is to embrace the chaos. You will be overwhelmed and stressed at some point and maybe overstimulated, because when you land in Delhi, it truly is like a gut punch to your senses. Delhi is the most populated city in the world. There's people, pollution, noise. Noise was something I didn't anticipate, but it can be quite noisy. And you might end up, having a breakdown at some point, crying in the airport bathrooms because the ATMs were broken down. My advice to you is to just remind yourself you've got this. You are fully capable of traveling easily. There's always people around who are willing to help you. One of the best parts about travel is it really does unite you with different people around the world, especially in times when you're stressed, overwhelmed, don't know what to do. Embrace the chaos. These are the moments during travel that help grow us, and they do make for memorable stories. Okay. I saved my favorite tip for last. This is my India solo female travel tip number 5. That is to connect with locals before you even go on this trip. Now, my reason for saying this is because if you know someone on the ground where you're going and you're in those moments where you're stressed or confused or just want recommendations, it is so comforting to know, oh, I've got someone here who I know will answer these questions for me or help me out if I'm in a tight spot. People can be incredibly hospitable, and they might even welcome you into their home like my friend Shivani did. Shout out to Shivani, her family's the best. I stayed in a remote Indian village with her family, and it was so special. And some ways you can go about connecting with locals include signing up for a language exchange app. This is how I've met a lot of really good friends. Even if you don't plan on learning the language, let's say you sign up for Hindi, it will still give you that connection to someone, and you can help them work on English if that's their goal. But you can also get some insider tips to places to go in India, what to avoid, what you should definitely do. I'm going to link 2 of my favorites below. I often use italki and HelloTalk. Something else I recommend is to add on social media that you are going to India and you want to know if anyone knows anyone there or has any tips. This is how I've gotten a lot of recommendations as well. It's actually how I got connected with Shivani. You can go to the local study abroad office or international education office, ask for recommendations there or connections. Lastly, you can check out your local Indian supermarket, buy something, make conversation with the person in the checkout aisle, and just mention that you're going on a trip. People are normally really welcoming and eager to share advice or connections. Promise you, you're gonna have a great time. And if you do have those local connections, you'll get a really unique experience that a lot of travelers may not have. So start telling people you're going on your trip because you're gonna do it and you're gonna have the best time. Okay, if you found this video helpful, feel free to give it a like, subscribe to be notified for my next video about how I got scammed in India. Until next time, thanks for watching.